Good morning, everyone. How are you today?
Good. How are you, Professor?
Okay, thank you, Percy. Well, welcome back, everybody, as we get to midweek here. So I hope you're doing well. And this will be the last time, hopefully, with any luck, that we'll have to be remote, right? So next week we'll be starting face-to-face instruction again at the Lancaster campus. So I truly hope that we can continue that way for the rest of the semester. It's just a superior way to go through school. So, all right, we're going to get back into chapter 1, finish up our coverage of homeostasis and feedback systems, and get chapter 2 started today. Do you have any questions at this moment that you'd like to ask? Okay, everybody's silent, so I hope you're rubbing the sleep out of your eyes. And no 8 a.m. classes are not the most enjoyable thing. So let's keep going here. I'm going to share my screen with you. Bring up the chat window. If you have questions, please ask along the way. And what I've done is bring up some notes that we finished our last class with. Okay, so from last time we were talking about homeostasis, which again is that state of balance or equilibrium inside the body for any given body condition, from body temperature to blood pressure to pH levels, whatever it is we might be talking about. It's that state of balance that is maintained by the regulatory mechanisms inside our bodies. We gave an example of the homeostatically normal resting blood sugar as 70 to 110 milligrams of glucose per deciliter of blood plasma. Okay, we then defined a feedback system to you as all the components of the body that work together to monitor the body condition, determine if the condition is normal, healthy, homeostatically correct, and if not, to take corrective action to return the body condition to homeostasis. So we were just in here talking about the components of a feedback system. Once again, figure 1.3 in your textbook. Figure 1.3, which in my textbook is page 11. We defined a receptor as a body structure that actually monitors a certain condition, like blood sugar, and communicates information about that condition to what's known as a control center. The example we gave you here is a taste bud. Okay, so a taste bud on your tongue would be an example of a receptor. Now, let's continue from this point forward. When the receptor communicates to the control center, so the control center is frequently the brain. It's not always the brain, but it is frequently the brain. But when you have information moving from the receptor to the control center, there's a special term used for that form of communication. So information moving from the receptor to the control center is known as afferent, with the letter A, afferent communication. Okay, so I'm going to underline this as an important vocab phrase for you. Afferent communication is communication of information from the receptor to the control center. Okay, let's continue. What we're going to do next is define the control center for you. Okay, so a control center is yet another body structure, again, frequently the brain, that takes the information from the receptor and sort of computes with it to determine if the body condition being monitored is normal or not. Okay, so the control center is this refers to a body structure, frequently the brain, that receives information from the receptor and determines, or you might say makes a judgment about whether the condition being monitored is healthy, and determines whether the monitored condition is quote unquote normal or not. Okay. Based on that decision by the control center will then communicate with the third component of a feedback system, which is an effector. So if the control center determines that the condition being monitored is healthy, is normal, is within homeostatically correct, proper bounds, then the control center might tell the effector, hey, everything's normal. There's nothing you have to do. There's no corrective action you have to take. On the other hand, if there's something that is out of balance, out of equilibrium, out of homeostasis, then the control center will generate instructions for an effector to take corrective action and bring the condition back into homeostasis. Okay, so the control center will communicate to an effector whether corrective action is needed or not. Okay, and so an example here of a control center. Let's stay with our line of reasoning here. So in our example here, we define the receptor as a taste bud. So continuing with that line of thinking, that line of reasoning, if the taste bud is detecting a change in saltiness or bitterness or sugariness in the mouth, that information is going to flow into the brain. Now, the brain's a complicated organ with many sub-regions of anatomy that are specialized to handle special sensations. In the brain, there's an area of anatomy, a collection of neurons called the gustatory region. The gustatory region. You don't really have to know about it right now, but I'm telling you it's there. And so the taste bud is going to communicate information about the food that you've placed in your mouth. That information goes to the brain in a region called the gustatory center, and neurons in the gustatory center then make a decision if everything is normal or not. Okay. So in this example, the control center is going to be the brain, specifically the gustatory center. Okay, let's see here. If you're very curious about the gustatory center, you can look it up in your textbook in figure 1415. So it's a picture, it's in a picture in chapter 14 of your textbook. Okay, so the brain is the control center for information coming from the taste buds. The brain's going to say, okay, no big problems here. Or it's going to say, whoa, I don't like what you just put into the mouth. So let's use an example where you've placed something into your mouth that's overly sweet, overly salty, or overly bitter, something that is rather uncomfortable for you to experience. And I'm sure we've all at some moment in our life done that, where you place something in your mouth and you kind of cringe, right? You kind of like make a facial expression, go, ooh, you know, that was harsh. And in fact, it might be so harsh or so foul that you might even spit that material out of your mouth quickly because you're just really not enjoying that sensation. Okay. And so let's stay with this example just to illustrate the idea of the components of a feedback system. All right, so the control center receives information from the receptor, makes a decision about whether things are homeostatically correct or not. The third and final component of a feedback system is the effector. Okay, so the effector is the part of the feedback system which receives instructions from the control center. And then, if necessary, take some kind of action to bring the condition back to normal, back to homeostatically correct ranges. Okay, so this refers to a body structure which receives instructions from the control center as to whether any corrective action is necessary. Okay, and so the example that we're using here in our notes, you've placed something bitter in your mouth or overly sour in your mouth, and so you might literally pucker your mouth. You might, ooh, you might make an expression. Okay, so the response there is that the control center has ordered your facial muscles to contract. And if the food is so foul, you might actually spit it out. That would be the effect. Get this material out of the mouth. Okay. So in our example here, the effector would be facial muscles that that respond to instructions to spit out overly sour food, just as an example. Okay, just as an example here. Okay, one other vocab term here. We mentioned that when communication is from the receptor to the control center, we call that afferent communication, right? We talked about that up here just a moment ago. Well, there's a similar idea here when we talk about information flowing from the control center to the effector. Communication of information from the control center to the effector is known as efferent, with the letter E as in egg, efferent communication. And so please be very careful here, right? Because afferent and efferent sound pretty similar, and they're spelled very similar, right? There's only a difference of one letter between those two phrases. Afferent and efferent communication can be easy to confuse when you're presented with this kind of thing on an exam, okay? So just be careful there. All right, so do you have any questions right now?
Professor, good morning. I was trying to figure out where is figure 1415. Is that in my lecture book or in my lab book?
Yes, that would be in your lecture book, Veronica.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? All right, so what I'm going to do is create a small table where we talk a little bit about some other examples of typical receptors, control centers, and effectors, just to flesh this topic out so we're all on the same page here. Okay, so additional examples of feedback system components. Okay. All right, so I'm going to create a table in our notes here together. And let's see, I think I'm going to need about 4 rows and 4 columns. Okay. All right. So in the first column, I'm going to write in the monitored condition. What is the body condition that's being monitored? Excuse me. I'm going to type in the second column what the receptor is. Third column what the control center is. And the fourth column what a typical effector would be here. Okay. All right. So let's take the monitored condition of blood sugar. And I'm going to step you through the basic receptor, control center, and effector language for a circumstance in which the blood sugar tends to be too high. Okay, so the body condition is blood sugar, and we're telling you that right now it's too high. So what would be the receptor that is going to detect that? Well, it's going to be your pancreas. Okay, it's going to be your pancreas, which you know is an organ. Now, of course, the organ is made of tissues and the tissue is made of cells. So ultimately, the receptor breaks down to some kind of cells that are part of the overall organ. But remember, we talked about in our definition for a feedback system, this refers to all components of the body, cells through organ systems that work together as a team to monitor a body condition. Okay, so the receptor would be the pancreas, the control center. All right. So the control center is going to be the organ, the tissue, or the cells that determine if blood sugar is normal and if a response of some kind is necessary. So the control center in this case is also going to be the pancreas, but I can identify for you the specific subset of cells within the pancreas organ that's responsible for making this determination. They are called beta cells. So the control center are beta cells in the pancreas. Okay. And then the effector. Well, you know, I think you know because you've been around for a while that people with diabetes have trouble regulating their sugar and so on and so forth. And hopefully you've come across that idea of insulin. So when the pancreas detects that there's an elevation in blood sugar, the beta cells in the pancreas, through processes at the molecular level that we're not yet describing, will determine if the blood sugar level is homeostatically healthy or not. If it is not, then the pancreas will release insulin into the bloodstream. Insulin floats into the bloodstream and it binds to target tissue, target organs that can respond to the insulin. And when they respond to the insulin, those tissues bring glucose inside themselves, pulling it out of the bloodstream, which lowers the blood sugar. So the effectors that respond to insulin most traditionally are your liver and your skeletal muscles. Okay, so this presents a little bit of a different scenario than we talked about here with the brain being the control center. Okay, so with blood sugar, the receptor is the pancreas organ and all the tissues that make it up and all the cells that make it up. The control center is a subset of cells that decide whether the sugar is normal or not, healthy or not, homeostatically correct or not. In the case of high blood sugar, the beta cells are going to say, well, we do have a problem. And so the beta cells are going to instruct the other cells of the pancreas to release insulin, goes into the bloodstream. Insulin binds the liver cells and the skeletal muscle cells and tells them effectively, please bring some glucose inside your cells so that the sugar level in the blood drops. Okay. Now we can take the opposite scenario. Let's continue with blood sugar. But let's say we have a situation where we have low blood sugar. Okay. In this case, the receptor is still the pancreas because the pancreas is the organ that's specialized for monitoring blood sugar. The control center in the pancreas for monitoring and making it, the control center in the pancreas for making the decision about whether low blood sugar is homeostatically correct or not are going to be the alpha cells. Okay, so the alpha cells will make this determination. And if the alpha cells say, hey, that we really do have a low blood sugar problem and we need to take corrective action, well, then the alpha cells are going to instruct other cells of the pancreas to release a different hormone. So let me ask you this in the chat window. So I'm going to type a question into the chat window. Here we go. When blood sugar is too low, what hormone is released by the pancreas? When blood sugar is too low, what hormone is released by the pancreas? Okay, so everybody knows about insulin, but that's for high blood sugar. What about the situation where we have low blood sugar? Okay, thank you, Veronica. And so glucose is not correct. Glucose is not a hormone. It's a monosaccharide. It's a carbohydrate. Okay, so what is the name of the hormone released by the pancreas? Okay, there we got some good stuff. Okay, so what I'm fishing for, Cutter is actually the first to get it. It's glucagon. The pancreas is going to release glucagon, which is a different hormone. It's not the same thing as insulin. Glucagon floats in the bloodstream. It binds to liver cells, skeletal muscle cells, and it effectively tells those cells to release any stored glucose they might have back into the bloodstream to raise the blood glucose levels. Okay. All right. So once again, the effector for this scenario is again going to be the liver and skeletal muscles. Okay. All right. So folks, I don't expect that you are an expert in endocrinology at this moment in time, right? You're not even going to get the endocrine system from a formal perspective till you make it to AMP2. So you'll get hormones in the endocrine system in AMP2. But right now we need to talk about a little bit of this stuff to give you examples of how feedback systems can work. Let me give you one more example here. So let's talk about monitoring the condition of blood pressure. And let's say that, something has happened to make the blood pressure high. Maybe you've just eaten a very salty microwave dinner, a frozen dinner. Or maybe you're scared. Maybe something is scaring you, so your blood pressure goes up. Okay. So in this case, the receptor monitoring blood pressure are going to be cells that are embedded in the fabric of your blood vessels called baroreceptors. Baroreceptors have special molecules that change their shape in response to changes in pressure and changes in blood pressure. Okay, so the receptor is going to be baroreceptors in the blood vessels. Okay. Those receptors, when the molecules in those cells change shape, they are attached to neurons. So the baroreceptors change shape and they cause a neuron to generate an electrical signal, which does in fact go to the brain. So once again, we come back to this idea that the brain is commonly, but not always, the control center. All right. So cells in the brain, and there's lots of cells involved in the brain with this, but one of the major regions of the brain for monitoring homeostatic processes like blood pressure is going to be the hypothalamus. And you'll learn about that in the bottom 1/3 of our semester together. Okay. But for right now, the brain receives information from the baroreceptors, which are specialized cells in the wall of the blood vessels that report on the blood pressure status at that moment of time. Electrical signals go up to the brain, into the hypothalamus. The cells in the hypothalamus say, oh, we've got a problem. Blood pressure is too high, okay? And so the brain will then, communicate in a number of different ways to lower the blood pressure. One common way is the hypothalamus will generate electrical signals that then go down the vagus nerve to your heart, and it will adjust the heart rate. And by lowering the heart rate, you can begin to drop the blood pressure. Okay, so the effector in this case would be your heart and blood vessels. Okay. All right. So, what we're missing in this conversation is a very detailed molecular description of what's happening, but that's something we need to get deeper into our semester before we can expect you to understand that, because we haven't even talked about the chemistry of things in chapter 2 yet. Okay. So as a first level, fairly bird's eye view of feedback systems, receptors, control centers, and effectors, are you feeling that you understand this idea? Okay, thank you, Percy. How about the rest of you? Okay, let's get more responses in the chat window, please. Okay. All right. Are there any questions you'd like to ask? Okay, so just to take 10 minutes to beat a dead horse, forgive me, but I'm going to take us through one more scenario where I define a scenario, and then I'm going to ask each of you in class here, one at a time. I'm going to ask you a question and see if you're able to come up with the correct answers. So this is just a friendly conversation. Don't be shy. Don't be nervous about making a mistake. It's okay. That's why we're here together to learn. Okay, so we're going to go through this together. So let me give us a hypothetical scenario where we can discuss feedback systems. Hypothetical discussion of a feedback system scenario. Okay, so here's the scenario. Let's say you're inside your house on a winter day. Hey, that seems pretty real world because we're all there right now, correct? So you're inside your house on a winter day. You're looking out the window and you notice that the mailman has delivered your mail. And so you decide to run out of the house without a jacket on to get your mail. Okay. You go outside without a jacket to get your mail. So you can kind of imagine what's going to happen here, right? So you're going outside and it's a winter day, so it's going to be cold outside, right? So nerve endings that are embedded in your skin, and we'll talk about what these nerve endings are, about chapter 5 in our course, okay? But you have nerve endings that are embedded in both the epidermis and dermal layers of your skin. For right now, I'm just going to say skin, okay? So you have nerve endings embedded in your skin that detect this drop in air temperature and report that your body temperature is actually starting to go down because you're outside on a cold winter day, okay? So nerve endings report a drop, nerve endings in your skin report a drop in body temperature to your brain. Your brain processes that information and decides that ultimately that's not a good thing. your brain decides the drop in body temperature is unhealthy. Okay. So the brain sends instructions to your skeletal muscles and tells your skeletal muscles to begin a repetitive cyclic process of contracting and relaxing, contracting and relaxing, contracting and relaxing. Those repetitive cycles of muscle tissue contracting and relaxing is basically what you and I know as shivering. So your brain tells your muscles to shiver, okay? Your brain sends instructions to your skeletal muscles to shiver, okay? So this is the situation we have. And now I'm going to use this situation to ask each of you questions, okay? All right, so we're going to start out nice and simple here, okay? So question one here, question one. So when I call on you, please unmute your microphone and say hi to us, and then I'll give you your question, okay? So Veronica Moreno. Hi, Veronica. Can you say hi? Unmute your microphone, please.
Yes.
Hi,
Good morning.
Veronica.
Hi, everybody.
So Veronica, here's our first question. In our silly little discussion that we're having right now, can you tell me what is the body condition that's being monitored?
My skin?
Your skin is your anatomy. It's not the body condition. So what is the, go ahead.
That it's cold?
Okay, cold is a status of the air. Okay, so you are circling the correct answer, Veronica. What body condition is being monitored?
Or temp.
Okay, please don't speak up unless I'm asking you. I appreciate it, Percy, but right now I want Veronica to sit on this. Okay, so Veronica, what do you say?
Well, looking at number 3, nerve endings, blah, 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 blah. It would have to be body temperature?
Beautifully stated. Thank you, Veronica. Thank you too, Percy. Please just hold on to those correct answers though, unless I'm asking you, okay? So, good job. Okay, so body temperature is the condition being monitored. Good job. All right, second question. We'll go to Veronica Mendez. Hi, Veronica Mendez. Please say hi to us. Veronica Mendez, are you with us? Hi, Veronica, you with us? Okay, I guess Veronica might be distracted right now. Okay, let's continue. Percy, you're next on the list, so I'll just go with you. So Percy, please say hi to us.
Can you hear me? Professor, I don't know if other people are having the issues, but you're cutting in and out on my end.
Okay, hold on a
So
second.
I can hear you right now, so.
Okay, hold on. Thanks, Percy. Question in the chat window to everybody. Hold on a sec. Is my audio choppy right now? Okay, all right, okay. So Percy, Percy, it would seem that most folks are hearing me okay, which is suggestive that the problem probably is on your end.
Why are you?
So I'm going to suggest that maybe you have an internet, a slow internet connection this morning or something like that. So Percy, I'm going to type a question in the chat window for you, okay? So Percy, here's your question, and I know you're going to do just fine on it. In our silly little scenario, what is the stimulus in this scenario? What is the stimulus? Okay, so the body condition being monitored is body temperature. So Percy, what is the stimulus here? Okay, so Percy is saying the cold itself. So, so Percy, what thing in the environment is actually cold? Okay, cold is not made of matter, right? It's not made of atoms. So what is it that is actually cold? Okay, you got it, Percy. It's the cold air. Good job. What is the stimulus? Just putting this into your notes. What is the stimulus? Changing body temperature. And the answer is the cold air. Okay, good. Next question. Good job, Percy. Okay, next question goes to Sarah Abaskaron. Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing your last name. So Sarah, hi.
Hi.
Sarah, speak up nice and loud. You're very faint here. Okay. Sarah, your question is this. In our example, what is the receptor?
Is it the nerve cells?
It is, and can you tell me, Sarah, where these nerve cells are located?
The skin or the brain?
Okay. Well, give me a definitive answer. Are you talking about nerve cells in the brain or nerve cells in the skin?
In the skin.
Okay, Sarah, you're absolutely right. The nerve cells in the brain could not be the receptor because the brain is not exposed to the outside air, right? Only the nerves embedded in your skin are exposed to the outside air. So those are the nerve cells that have to be the receptors. Thank you, Sarah. Good job. Okay, let's continue here. Okay, Kenneth, please say hi to us.
Hey, can you hear me all right?
I can hear you, Kenneth. Good morning. So, Kenneth, I think a very easy question. In our example, what is the control center?
That would be the brain.
Okay, good job. You are correct, Ken. Can you tell me what area of the brain probably monitors temperature homeostasis?
I'm not sure about that.
Okay, that was just an extra one, a little unfair for me to ask you, but I throw it out that way. Again, that is going to be your hypothalamus. So the brain is the control center, specifically the hypothalamus in the brain. Okay. Okay, good job, Kenneth. Let's continue here. Tristan, please say hi to us.
Hi.
Good morning. Tristan, your question is this: when the nerve cells in the skin communicate to the control center, which is the brain, does it use afferent or efferent communication?
Would that be efferent communication? Because it's telling the control center is telling it to do it, like to shiver or anything.
So just let me be sure I understand. So you're saying it's efferent with E as in egg. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah,
Okay, so thanks for participating today. No, that one would not be correct, Tristan, right? We need to communicate from the skin, which is the receptor, into the brain, the central nervous system. So that's going to be afferent, A as in apple.
okay.
All right, so it's just a matter of getting comfortable with this new language. Okay, no problem. Let's keep going here. Mohammed, please say hi to us.
Hi,
Good morning, Mohammed. How are you?
good. How are you?
Okay, thank you. All right, so Mohammed, your question is as follows. In our example, what is the effector?
The skeletal muscles.
Beautifully stated, no problem there. Thanks, Mohammed.
Thank you.
All right, so you can see some of these are very, very easy questions. Okay, Ashton, please say hi to us, Ashton.
Hello.
Hi, Ashton. Ashton, the question for you is this. What is the form of communication that the brain used to communicate with the skeletal muscles?
Efferent.
Okay, you get that. Absolutely. Nicely done, Ashton. This is efferent communication. So I'm just going to copy this here and alter the language. Okay. What form of communication is being used to move information from the brain to the skeletal muscles? And it would be efferent communication. Okay, everybody's doing very well. Let's keep rolling here. Okay. Cutter, you're next. Please say hi to us, Cutter.
Hello.
Good morning. So Cutter, here's your question, and this is where things are going to start to take a little bit of a different feel to it. So Cutter, let me pose this question to you. In our example that we've been talking about here for 5 minutes already, when your body responds by shivering, is that an example of a positive or negative feedback?
Negative.
Okay, that is correct, Cutter. Can you explain why it's negative?
Because it's like reducing or diminishing the not the stimulus, the whatever is acting on stimulus.
Okay, Cutter, I like some of the language you used. I will communicate it a little bit differently, but I think you have the right idea. So thanks for participating this morning. So the question is, he answered it even before I could get it typed out here. Is the response of skeletal muscle shivering an example of positive or negative feedback? And the answer is negative. And so, how do you tell the difference? How do you tell the difference between positive and negative feedback? Well, it's pretty straightforward, but sometimes folks do get this backwards and confused. So be careful here. You're dealing with a negative feedback situation when the response of the body is to reverse the influence of the stimulus. In our example, the stimulus was the cold air. The shivering is being done to generate heat so that your body warms back up. So the stimulus caused your body to get cold. Your body responds by shivering to produce heat, so you get warm. So again, negative feedback is anytime the body is attempting to reverse the effect of the stimulus. Okay. And so positive feedback would be anytime the body is trying to amplify, enhance, or increase the effect of the stimulus. Okay, so negative feedback, you reverse the effect of the stimulus. Positive feedback, you intensify, you enhance, you amplify the effect of the stimulus. Okay, questions about that?
So I'm trying to like put in my head, I always need examples because I'm that type of person. So I would say like a negative feedback, would that be like a heart attack? Like, would that be like an effect of a stimulus, like what's happening in the body?
Well, I think that would be a bad example, Veronica. In other words,
Okay.
your body doesn't want to have a heart attack, right? It doesn't want to do that.
Correct.
So Veronica, stay with me for the next question or two and see if we help remove the cloudiness, okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right. So, and it's a good question, Veronica, and I'm aware that some students might have this, so that's why the next question coming up is to deal with some of that. So, the next person in line here to get a question, let's see. Jessica Mateus. Hi, Jessica. Can you say hi to us?
Hi.
Hi, Jessica. Please speak up nice and loud so we can all hear you. So, Jessica, here's your question. Thinking about our little scenario here where you went outside without a jacket, you got cold, the brain told your muscles to shiver. Thinking about this scenario, Jessica, if you, for some silly reason, wanted to do something to create positive feedback in this situation, what could you do?
Could you like, I don't know, like would that be like trying to make yourself warm? So like I'm guessing like, I don't know, like rubbing your hands together or like putting the jacket on. Is that a good example?
Okay, so you're saying to put a jacket on or rub your hands together to build up some heat. Is that correct, Jessica?
Yeah, I feel like the rubbing hands would probably be a better answer. I'm not sure, but yeah, I'm gonna go with
Okay.
that.
All right, thanks, Jessica, for participating this morning. Folks, I'm going to put a question into the chat window. Please, everybody respond. Here we go. Folks, do you agree with Jessica that putting on the jacket would be positive feedback? Okay, so just evaluate it from your own perspective. Give me a yes or no. Okay, all right. Okay, so just everybody take a look at the common answers in the chat window. Jessica, take a look. It seems that many of your peers do not agree with you. And Jessica, I have to say, unfortunately, that I do not agree with you either. Okay, so Jessica, please say hi to us again.
Hello.
Hi, Jessica. So Jessica, with positive feedback, you want to enhance the stimulus. So Jessica, in our example, what is the stimulus?
It's the cold air.
Okay. Okay, so the cold air is the stimulus, and that stimulus is making your body cold. So positive feedback would make your body warmer or colder, Jessica?
Enhance, it would make it cold.
Okay, so you want to do something to make yourself colder. So what could you do?
That's it. to make yourself colder. You, I'm not sure you can stay out there longer, outside longer. Like I know you were saying you're just going outside to go get the mail, but staying outside longer would enhance the effect of the stimulus.
Okay, Jessica, I like your answer a lot, right? Increase the time of exposure is a perfectly good way you could create positive feedback. Good. Here's some other things. Couldn't you take your shirt off? I mean, that's a silly thing to do, but you could take your pajamas off and run around the neighborhood and you get even colder. Maybe if it's winter time, there's a pile that maybe there's snow on the ground, you could jump in a snow drift or something like that. I mean, it's ridiculous, but the point of our example is what could you do to make yourself colder? Okay, so all right. So hold on here, let me document this. So I'll say jump in a snowbank. Okay. All right, okay. So let me see. Did everybody get a question? Let me see. All right, is there anybody online that didn't get a question from me? Because I really wanted everybody to get a question. Okay, so Veronica Marino, I'm coming back to you. Okay, so Veronica, I have another question for you. Okay.
Oh, no, please don't.
Oh, come on. This is all fun stuff. Come on. So Veronica, let's say that you're walking around the neighborhood with your son or daughter at Halloween, it's trick or treat. And let's say your daughter's blood sugar level has gone up because she has nibbled on a piece of candy that she got for Halloween. So Veronica, if you as a parent wanted to tell her to do something to create positive feedback for her blood sugar status, what could you do?
You said for low blood sugar or high blood sugar?
Your daughter has high blood sugar because she ate a piece of candy. Now I'm asking you, what advice could you give your daughter so that she would create positive feedback for her blood sugar?
I mean, I would decrease the amount of, I don't know. I mean, if her
Okay.
sugar went up, I would give her insulin, but I wouldn't. I would probably monitor the amount of sugar if I would give my diabetic kid sugar. I mean,
Okay. All right, Veronica, stay with me here. So in our silly little example, you're going trick or treating with your daughter, and your daughter's blood sugar has gone up because she had a piece of candy. So Veronica, what is the stimulus that changed her blood sugar? Veronica, what is the stimulus that caused your daughter's blood sugar to go up? So Veronica, does it make sense that the candy your daughter ate is the stimulus that caused her blood sugar to go up? Does that make sense?
oh, okay.
Do you
I
see
have to
that?
read, I have to reread this and get more in depth to it because my brain is going somewhere else
Yes.
with
And
trying to
so,
understand these scenarios. Sorry.
so if your daughter's blood sugar has gone up because she ate a piece of candy, which is the stimulus that caused her blood sugar to go up, what advice could you give your daughter to create positive feedback with your daughter's blood sugar?
Don't eat the candy.
No, that is incorrect. Veronica, here's the issue that you and other students sometimes have, so don't be embarrassed by it, okay? You are thinking from an emotional perspective. You're thinking my daughter's sugar level's too high, so I want to bring it back down. And if I bring it back down, That's a positive outcome. You don't want to think that way with this kind of material. You don't want to think emotionally, you want to think physiologically. The stimulus in our example is the sugar from the candy. It caused her blood sugar to go up. So how can your daughter amplify that effect, which is positive feedback? Well, she could amplify that effect by consuming another piece of candy. Am I making sense, Veronica?
That doesn't make any sense to me, but like I said,
Okay.
I have to reread it and then I'll probably get it. But being put on the spot, it kind of, I learn a totally different type of way when I'm studying and listening to
Okay.
lectures.
Okay, so I'll leave you alone. You've identified a weakness in your current thinking, and so you definitely want to focus on that. So you start to get that. Please let me know if I can help you. Come to office hours or something if you want some help. Okay, so I have a question from Percy in the chat window. Is the statement true with all this positive feedback can have a negative outcome for life? No, absolutely not, Percy. Okay, there are examples of positive feedback in the body that are perfectly normal. Let me give you an example. Your book uses the example of contractions in the uterus at birth. When a child is being born, as the child's head moves into the opening of the cervix begins to stretch, and that creates contractions to help move the child out of the mother's body. When that process starts, it creates a positive feedback so that the uterine contractions get even stronger to help get the child out of the body. So there are scenarios where positive feedback is a very good thing and is exactly what should happen. In other words, we want the uterine contractions to increase until the child really is removed from the mother's body. Another example of positive feedback that is normal and entirely proper is the electrical signals in the nervous system. They self-reinforce each other, which is a positive feedback scenario. So the nervous system couldn't even work correctly if it wasn't for positive feedback happening. Okay.
I think I mistyped that, Professor. I get what you're saying. I meant, I reread it. I'm sorry. I meant sometimes. I think, because I had the issue reading it too, and I think it's kind of what you were saying earlier, if I understood the way you were saying, is I was thinking, I guess outcome. I was thinking outcome on life as positive outcome on life, meaning you live. Negative outcome on life, meaning you die or something fails. And then as I read through the book, it talked about, I think it was your heart racing, and the positive is, it said something about like, then your heart keeps racing and then eventually you have a negative outcome. Or you have a life outcome, not a negative outcome. But that's positive because it's staying the same course it was already doing. Is that
Yes,
the
that
very
is,
basic concept?
yes, that is exactly right. So again, let's take our example of being outside in the cold. If you're outside in the cold and you want to create positive feedback, you want to make yourself colder. So you jump in a pile of snow. The ultimate outcome of that is if you stay exposed to the cold snow and temperature for a long time, you're probably going to die, which would be a very negative outcome for you, right? That would be a very negative outcome. But what's happening is the word in science, when you confuse ideas, is called conflate. You are conflating ideas. You don't want to think about the emotional outcome of I'm dead being negative. You want to think about the physiological response of, am I enhancing the stimulus or am I reversing the stimulus? If you're enhancing the stimulus, it's positive. If you're reversing the stimulus, it's negative. That's how you need to think about these feedback system, the feedback system logic. Okay.
So,
All right.
Professor, so, and I hope I don't steal your next part with this next question. So Negative feedback with that same example would be how we all tried to warm ourselves when you were asking the question.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Because the stimulus was the cold air and it was making your body cold. So when your muscles shiver to generate heat to warm you up, that's negative feedback. If you were to put on a jacket to warm yourself up, that's negative feedback. It's reversing the stimulus. If you walked back into your house, that's negative feedback because you're reversing the effect of the cold air stimulus. Okay. All right. All right. So, all of this is very understandable, but I do find traditionally where students get themselves a little bit flummoxed is thinking about what positive and negative means. In this context, it does not refer to an emotional or psychological thinking process. It refers to if I'm enhancing the stimulus, it's positive. If I'm reversing the stimulus, it's negative, period. Okay. All right. Okay, gang. Any other questions before we just put this to bed?
Professor, these notes, I actually stopped trying to keep up because you type faster than I can write. Are these notes in Wiley?
Yes, they will. They are in Wiley. The notes today will be in Wiley before the end of today.
And am I allowed to dictate your lectures? Like record your lectures?
Absolutely, yes. Right now I am recording this lecture for you, and you can find the Zoom links in Wiley as well. If you need help, do you need help finding them? Do you know how to get them?
I know how to get them. Yep.
Okay. So yeah, and when we get back to physical in-person instruction, if you would like to audio record the lectures, I'm okay with that. So
Okay, thank you.
okay, gang. So don't be afraid to wrestle with this content, and don't be embarrassed by getting some things wrong. Hey, I get a ton of stuff wrong every day, but you learn from your mistakes. That's what you do. Practice questions. If you get it right, fantastic, feel good about it. If you get it wrong, think of it as an opportunity to do better. Don't beat yourself up, okay? All right, let's continue here. So I'm going to stop with chapter 1 and start chapter 2. Okay, so the two major topics we talked about in chapter 1 was the organizational size of matter. Atoms, molecules, nanostructures, nanomachines, cells, tissues, organs, organ systems. That we talked about that. And then we just spent the better part of an hour talking about homeostasis, feedback systems, the language of it, the understanding of the logic of it. So now we're going to go to chapter 2, which is the chemistry chapter. The chemistry chapter is not everybody's favorite because a lot of students get worried about chemistry. The truth of the matter is that your body and my body, everybody's body works on chemical principles. This is all biochemistry and honestly biophysics as well. So you're not going to be an expert on chemistry by taking this class and looking at one chapter. You would only be an expert in chemistry if you've had multiple courses in chemistry over many years. That being said, there's some basic ideas we do want beginning students to start to think about, okay? And so I'm going to go down to, well, let's see here. I guess I'll go down to a new page and put chapter 2, chemistry. Okay. All right, so chapter 2 is a pretty deep chapter, as you will find all the chapters are. There's a lot of content. Let me start talking about atomic structure here. Okay, so I'm currently on page 31 of the book, somewhere around figure 2.1, around figure 2.1. Okay. So atomic structure is our talking point at this moment. And we'll simply define some things for you that I think you know, but if not, that's why we're here together. So first off, let's define what an atom is. Atoms are the basic building blocks of material, the basic building blocks of matter. Everything in our physical world that exists that you can grip or touch in some way is made of matter. The matter is made of atoms. So your hair, your skin, piece of paper, your pen, pencil, your computer, it's all made of atoms, right? And so is the air in your lungs. The air is made of gas molecules. Molecules are collections of atoms. So even the gaseous material in your lungs is made of atoms. So atoms are the basic building blocks of matter. Okay. I sometimes jokingly call atoms the universe's equivalent of Lego blocks, right? If you like to play with Legos, if you played with them growing up, or you have children that play with Legos, right? You take the Lego bricks, you click them together in different arrangements, patterns, and you build a Lego robot, a Lego airplane, a Lego dollhouse. The Legos are the atoms. Atoms are the primitive Lego blocks of the universe. Okay. You may recall from high school chemistry that there's different types of atoms. We call different types of atoms elements. Okay, so there's things like hydrogen atoms and nitrogen atoms and carbon atoms. That would be like having different Lego blocks. You could have a red colored Lego block and a black colored Lego block and a green colored Lego block. They would be different blocks, different elements, different types of atoms. Okay. We know that atoms are made of 3 basic subatomic particles. Okay. They are the proton, which has a positive charge to it, and it's present inside what's called the nucleus of the atom. Okay, proton has a positive charge. It's found in the nucleus. Another subatomic particle found in the nucleus is the neutron. The neutron has a neutral charge. It has no charge. Okay, you can kind of see some of these things being suggested in figure 2.1. Figure 2.1. On our everyday living experience, we don't think a lot about atoms. We just take it for granted that there's stuff around that we can interact with, right? We just take it for granted. But when you're going to get involved with science, well, then we need to think about this, because we might need to manipulate atoms intentionally to build a chemical that allows us to clean our toilets, or build a chemical that allows us to fry food better, or we might need it to build transistors to make a computer chip so that we could all be online together talking about physiology, right? So the atoms start to become very relevant when we're talking about scientific and engineering applications. Okay, the third subatomic particle is the electron. This has a negative charge, and it is found outside the nucleus. So it actually orbits the nucleus. It travels around the nucleus. Okay, so that's just the most primitive description of what atoms really are. And again, we kind of don't get this thing because we don't think about it on a daily basis. Well, okay, let's continue. Before we can talk about more sophisticated ideas, we need to talk about some basic information, which is what we're doing at this time. So I'm going to turn the page in my textbook, page 32, and start looking at things like figure 2.2, figure 2.2. And there's some key ideas in figure 2.2. So one important characteristic or property of atoms, one important vocab word for exams for A&P students would be the idea of atomic number. Okay, atomic number refers to the number of protons present in the nucleus of an atom. Okay, and so why atomic number as a concept is important is that every different element of the periodic table, every different type of atom has a unique atomic number. Take a look at figure 2.2 and just read the atomic numbers of every atom present there. Hydrogen has an atomic number of 1, carbon atomic number 6, nitrogen is 7, oxygen 8, sodium 11, chlorine 17, potassium 19, iodine 53. What do you notice? What you notice is that every unique type of atom has a unique atomic number. The atomic number is a characteristic that allows scientists to distinguish different types of atoms from each other. Nitrogen atom is different from a carbon atom because it has a different number of protons. Okay, so each chemical element of the periodic table has a unique atomic number. Atomic number can be used to tell different types of atoms apart. Okay, if you had a way in the lab to measure the number of protons in different atoms, then you would have a way to tell the different atoms apart from each other. That's really the importance of the concept of atomic number. Okay, next topic is the topics of atomic mass and mass number. There's two related ideas in figure 2.2. Notice there's mass number and there's atomic mass. I am going to take atomic mass first. Okay, so just take a look at atomic mass. Take a look at the atomic mass of potassium. It's 39.10. The atomic mass of chlorine, 35.45. The atomic mass of iodine, 126.90. So atomic mass, I'm going to put a statement in the notes. I'm going to put a blank line and I'm going to ask you to fill in the answer for me. Atomic mass is the blank number of protons plus neutrons in a group of atoms. Okay, the blank number of protons plus neutrons in a group of atoms. Folks, what word should go in that blank to make the sentence correct? The blank number of protons plus neutrons in a group of atoms. What word would make that sentence correct? Okay, thank you, Mohammed. Thank you, Tristan. Mohammed and Tristan, I appreciate the participation, but those are not correct. Anybody else? Okay, so thanks, Veronica, I appreciate that. No, that's not correct either. Here's the answer. The word that should go in that blank is average. the average number of protons plus neutrons in a group of atoms. Okay, so I'm going to just type it in here. Average. Okay. All right. So you'll notice that when you talk about atomic mass, some of the numbers have a decimal point and numbers to the right of the decimal point. That means there's a fractional answer, a fractional answer. It's kind of like this. The US government might tell you that the average American family has 3.5 children. And you might think to yourself, well, how in the world could a family have 3.5 children? That's ridiculous. And it is ridiculous, but it makes sense from an average perspective. So you could have one family that has 3 children and another family that has 4 children. So the average of 3 plus 4 is 3 plus 4 equals 7. 7 divided by 2 is 3.5. So if you start taking the averages of whole numbers, of integers, you can get numbers that have fractional answers. Okay, that's why atomic mass is the average number of protons plus neutrons in a group of atoms. Gang, I know I'm out of time, but let me leave you with a question that I want you to ponder over the weekend and come back with the answer for me. Okay. Question. What does the definition of atomic mass suggest exists? Okay. Another way of saying this is, what concept is foreshadowed by the idea of atomic mass? Okay, so give yourself some study time thinking about these questions. See if you can come up with an answer for next Monday. And folks, next Monday, we are going to be together in the classroom. So remember your notebooks, bring your tablets, your laptops and electronic tablets to get access to your digital textbook. And by all means, bring a mask to cover your face. And probably the most important thing, bring some enthusiasm that we're finally back in school together, okay? All right, folks, I'm going to stop